minute, then we can start.
Sure. So in the meantime, I'll do the roll call here. So we have Don Knorr, Guthrie Dinakaran, not yet Dan Ramsey, Carrie Schaffner is present, Carl Stump, and Kendra Wokus. So 5 committee members are present. We do have a quorum.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. It is January 23rd, 2023, 6:30. First item on the agenda, minutes of the 1/9/2023 meeting.
And I'll announce, if you'll pardon the interruption, Dan Ramsey just joined the meeting. So.
Oh, okay. Hi, Dan. Good to see you here.
Good evening.
Okay, sorry for the interruption.
Okay, no problem. So we need a motion to approve the minutes of the 1/9/2023 meeting.
Ramsey will move to approve.
This is Kendra, I'll second.
First and a second. Any further discussion? Amendments, changes, etc.? Hearing none.
Don, I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here at the last part of the meeting.
Okay, no problem. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, Acre Farm, Red Tail Ridge utility study. Sean, you want to introduce this for us?
Yeah, and I just wanted to check real quick if anybody from the development team is present, and I'm not seeing any representatives of Encore or the engineer, but you'll remember last time we talked about the utility study and deferred action on it, just pending ironing out some details of the sanitary sewer in particular. So we did have a quick meeting following the meeting and came to resolution. They've already changed the drawings, so they are showing a 12-inch water main internal to the development that goes back out at the northeast corner. They're showing the sanitary sewer pump station along Pheasant Branch Road near the southeast corner of the development. And the recommendation in the report is for the sanitary sewer along Bellefontaine Boulevard to be 12-inch diameter at the slopes that they've already proposed. They just didn't have any pipe sizes at all on their concept plans. I think they were waiting on the utility study to size those pipes. So they have that recommendation now. So all the recommendations that are in the study, just maybe spin down and highlight it in the diagram. This is virtually the same diagram that we had last time of the water main. So this would be a 12-inch pipe that comes up along, not right along the roadway, but internal to the development and then back out to the roadway. So that's consistent with the utility master plan. And then for the sanitary sewer, I realized there were a lot of numbers. That's why I just made this graphic instead, that there's sort of a drainage break, if you will, that thing southeast of this line that I'm kind of tracing with my hand would drain down to the pumping station and go into the Pheasant Branch interceptor. Things north and west of this sort of line would drain through Misty Valley and get into the Pheasant Branch interceptor that way. This little bit of an elbow of existing pipe is the one that has somewhat limited capacity. So it's collecting sort of the north part of Misty Valley. It'll be collecting the lion's share of Acre Farm or Red Tail Ridge, whatever it ends up getting called. And then a little bit of this sort of future area to the north up toward Balzer Road. But to collect the rest of that, the pipe that'll be built through Acre Farm has capacity. It's just this piece of existing pipe that was laid flatter than would have capacity for that. So that would have to either be relayed or upsized. One other thing the developer's looking into, and it's really a concept at this point, is, could the pump station down here be eliminated if they could find a gravity route that goes right into the Pheasant Branch interceptor? The hard part is there's a bit of a creek that goes west to east right through here, and they have to get under that. And it may not be possible to get under that and still have cover over the top of the pipe. So they're open to looking at it. I'd love for it to work. I'm not very hopeful. So the recommendation is to accept the report as revised, which now has more robust recommendations in it, including that acknowledgement that future growth to the north of this development would need either to upsize some existing pipe or find a different route entirely.
Do we need to have a motion before we discuss?
We typically do, but if you
Okay,
have
I'll make a
questions.
motion. I'll make a motion to approve. Don't do this.
Ramsey, a second.
I just have two questions, Sean, and I should have written them down, but I'll try to remember. The first one, is the developer looking into the gravity option because it's cheaper than a pump station? Or is it?
It's less expensive, but it's also more reliable.
Oh, okay.
You can't lose electricity or have a
Yeah.
mechanical problem.
Okay, that makes sense. And then my other question, as far as having to replace that main that goes through Misty Valley,
Mhm.
who would be responsible for doing that? Anybody who did the future development north of Baker Farm, or is that something that the city would have to shoulder the cost?
Typically, we'd look for the future developer to make sure that the downstream, ideally, this would have been laid at the right pitch to make that work,
Right.
but it's not. And,
Yeah.
So they can put a little bit this way, we think, in the future. They might have a different route or means entirely. I don't know. But upsizing that wouldn't be awful.
Okay.
They just might have a better, different way to do it.
And like you said, that would be at the cost of the developer.
Typically, yes, subdivisions are always, the overarching presumption is that developments are at no cost to the taxpayers.
Okay.
So do they have to come back if they do some research and the gravity thing does work out, even though I'm anticipating that it wouldn't, they have to come back for approval then?
We'd come back at that phase. It probably won't be built until phase 4, is my
Oh,
guess.
that's
And
right.
I
Okay.
know that was one of the sort of open questions, if you will, in the letter report, is that we should figure out what the timing of that water main loop connection would be. And it would probably be the same time as this force main gets built under the creek, but this force main won't be needed until phase 4.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, so that's years in the future. It's just on the board to figure it out.
Got it.
So further discussion.
Connection from the Misty Valley pipe to the interceptor, is there a steep pitch at the end of that Misty Valley pipe? Or why was it laid so shallow?
It's not that it's so shallow, it's that it's pretty flat.
Or pitched so shallow?
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a steep pitch at the end of it?
I didn't look at the inverts myself carefully, but I got the impression this is deep, just flat. That
It is
could
very
have
deep
been
and flat.
could have been
We
laid.
should verify that, because if Acker hooks into it,
Mhm.
at the wrong location, we got the future would have a problem connecting if the Acker connection doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so we could either make that a drop connection if this could be relayed as 12-inch, but at a slightly steeper pitch, we could, if it's deep enough, invent some grade there by putting a drop in, or this could be upsized later.
Okay,
And neither of those things would be terribly expensive now.
Okay, further
But we'll look
discussion?
at that. That's a great idea.
All right, one last question. Is it better to do that now before acre goes in, or does it matter?
Well, the harder part is, right, acre has capacity in the existing.
Oh, right.
So there's not
Okay.
any great reason to make them do this
we just
now.
need to make sure that Acre doesn't do something that would screw up a future connection. That's all.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. That's why we wanted to make sure this is the right size at the right slope, so we don't have to, 1,000 feet of main has to get relayed.
Yeah.
Say we're looking for a motion to recommend approval of this.
We have a motion and a second already, Carl. We just
Oh, okay, sorry.
finish discussion, and if the discussion is finished, we can take a vote, but is the discussion finished? I guess that's my question.
Excuse me, my internet connection's acting up tonight, so I'm a little slow.
We saw that, Carl. All right, with no further discussion, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of the motion, which is to approve this plan? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, plot plan.
Yeah, so number 3 is the, oops, spun right past it there, the preliminary plat. And we've been looking at a couple iterations of that. Oftentimes, these things just go to the Plan Commission. Since we have some roadways that the committee's already looked at previously, and some of these utility issues, I had just gone through it, and granted, there are quite a few markups on it, but the recommendation in a grand sense is for conditional referral to the Plan Commission, well, with some conditions, right? So let me just head over to the plat. So I put a bunch of comment boxes in. I don't think many of them are terribly substantive, other than in these multifamily lots. The center one is right now planned without frontage, so that's something we're going to need to talk with them sooner than later. And this road that's stubbed out for a potential connection into lands to the north for future development, we're asking, as is typical, for an easement for a temporary cul-de-sac. The rest of it, I think, is relatively insubstantial.
One of the things you might want to do is have them fix the key plan. Every one of these drawings shows the same area on the key plan, which is not true.
Is it this plan?
Yeah,
Are you saying that it's inaccurate on each plan?
no, it's the
Yeah,
same.
because it shows the same area on each plan. If you look at each one of these drawings,
Okay.
it shows the same area on the key plan, which is not true.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Okay. I didn't even really look at that. I just was using that as my own reference.
I was trying to follow this. It was impossible.
Yeah, the part I found a little more frustrating is there are no sort of match lines. So parts are duplicated, but parts just have gaps.
Yeah.
But I'll make
So-
a note of that. Yeah.
You have add match lines in here too, Sean? That would be good.
Okay.
So you need a motion from us to approve, to send back to Plan Commission, to send to Plan Commission with these comments, or approve with these comments to send to Plan Commission.
Oops. Every now and then I get to resize things. Yeah, so I drafted, and I'm certainly open to additions or changes, but just drafted a recommendation to get it back to the Plan Commission for conditional approval with at least these conditions. You or they may know of more.
All right. Do we have a motion that states such? I guess the motion would be to include these items in our motion to approve, correct?
Well, ours is to recommend it to the Plan Commission for their conditional approval.
They're the ultimate approval, okay.
I'll go ahead and make that motion that we recommend to the Plan Commission conditional approval of the preliminary plat contingent upon the items listed here in the agenda or in the memo, either way, I guess.
Okay. Any corrections or additions to those? Okay.
We have a motion from Carrie. We need a second.
This is Kendra, I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 4.
Ooh. There, finally. So the Bruce Company redevelopment has a couple things going on. One, and I've split it into two pieces here. Ideally, just, I hope it's more straightforward this way. One is for the TIA addendum, which we had looked at last time but did not take action on. And the other is for discussion of site access apart from that analysis.
Okay.
Sean, if we go ahead and approve the TIA addendum, and then there are some changes, do we have to have a new TIA or I guess how does that work? Like, you know, agenda number 5, if there are some changes, how does that impact?
Right. Well, so that's a really good question. A TIA is something we need because of the nature of redevelopment. We want to understand where traffic's going, where conflict points are looking at, you know, far into the future. And it has recommendations for the city's guidance. The city can take action or reach conclusions different than the TIA, but this is just a snapshot with technical analysis of input. So they looked at 4 different driveway connections with varying degrees of mobility and made some recommendations. If the committee and or Plan Commission and or Common Council wants to go beyond that or look at something different and reach a conclusion or approval for site development different than the TIA would recommend, they certainly can. This is just providing technical analysis and input on some fixed conditions.
That makes sense. So basically, given the plan that we had for the TIA addendum looked at that particular plan and gave those recommendations. And so that's what we're approving is like, yes, we agree with those recommendations based on the conditions that were analyzed at that time.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Well, then I'll go ahead and move approval of that, of the addendum memo with its recommendations.
This is Terrence Wall. Isn't there going to be some public input time here, or the applicant going to have time to say something?
Once the motion has a second and it's on the table, can't we discuss?
Yes,
Sure.
correct. We need a second though. We only have a motion.
Yeah. I just want to clarify the motion again. It's just accepting the report. It's not taking any action on the plan. It's not approving any changes to any plan. It's not approving anything. It's just saying that we recognize the work of the consultants and accept their analysis.
Does
Yes.
the motion include the memorandum?
Well, the motion is the memorandum, basically.
Okay.
I mean, so we already previously approved the full-blown TIA. And
That's
then
okay.
Jake Buns, on behalf of the developer, requested, well, could we study different access configuration just for the retail site, not the overall development, but just the retail site.
Okay,
and-
so it does include the memorandum of SRS memorandum of whatever that date is.
Yes, and that memorandum is fixed just to those 4 driveways. And if the city comes up with something else different, it doesn't include that.
Yeah, my thoughts
So I have a
behind
legal,
my thoughts behind making this motion are that my understanding is that we go ahead and approve the memorandum as is, given the design as it was. And then in agenda number 5, we could discuss other potential options, but those weren't on the table when the TIA addendum memo was analyzing those options. So it was analyzing those 4 driveway options.
Right.
Okay. Again, we have a motion, but no second at this point. On item number 4.
Correct. So then the motion would die for lack of second.
Correct, unless we get a second here in the next minute or two. I'll call it again. Do we have a second for the acceptance
This
of
Carl, I'll second it.
item number 4? Okay, Carl, thank you.
And so a question, can we just accept the addendum memo and just strike the word with its recommendations until we have discussed item number 5?
Well, its recommendations won't change regardless of what the committee discusses in number 5, because it's looking at 4 driveways that are of a different configuration than I think we're about to discuss.
Okay, because I think everybody's concern is locking themselves in by voting in the affirmative to this and then not being able to put in different options after number 5.
Okay.
I
well,
think that's somewhat what the hesitation is trying to get the form right.
Okay. And I think I get that. I think the hard part is if we skip ahead and reach a different geometry for driveways or different location for driveways and try to mix that into this memorandum, we're effectively putting SRF's name on analysis that they didn't do. They won't have looked at.
Okay. All right. So then what we can do is we have a first and a second for this. We can vote on this. If we vote on it in the affirmative, then we can, in item number 5, we can amend our recommendations to override their recommendations.
It's like a separate issue. Like this, I think like the memo is kind of what they analyzed in the past, because there was not a 5th option, right, or something, right? So it was just what the information they had. And we can approve that report, that memo. But then if there's changes to the site, I don't think we can ask them to redo their analysis. Or maybe we can, but like Sean is saying, we can't really addend that because they never did that work.
Right. So if the committee then subsequently wants to talk about a different idea, and let's just say the south driveway, right? I think that's where the discussion's about to head. Let's say the committee comes up with a different configuration for the south driveway that they'd like to recommend. That has nothing to do with SRF's analysis or their report or their recommendations. It's new information that they just didn't look at.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I think we've discussed this. Is there any further discussion on this, or can we take a vote?
I think we're ready to vote.
Are you for a public discussion on this? Or is this, because it's
Not on this item.
not on this item?
The discussion will be in item number 5, Seth. So all in favor of item number 4, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? None. Motion 4 carries. Now we go to item number 5. So Sean, explain to us with this, and I looked at the plans and saw them, and it looks like we would have to accept a variance to the city's design concepts. Is that correct?
Well, the city has an access management policy that we've adopted, but it's policy, right? It's intended to give everybody the same guidance for the same situations about access. And that's a lot of what SRF has been looking at, and it's frankly based on practical experience with things. So they made recommendations that are just technical and said, we would recommend against this. I know the committee looked last time and the developer provided a drawing with this southerly driveway then being more of an S-curve than just coming straight out. So previously it was, I think, in the mid 50-foot range from Parmenter Street curb over to the driveway. And then it would have been a little further from this next driveway. Now this is dimensioned well to the center, so 65 feet from the edge of driveway to the stop bar, when it had been much closer than that. That puts this now in the ballpark of 60 or 65 feet away to the next driveway. So that's starting to get pretty close, and everything has something of a balance.
what is the access management plan say?
Well, that was looked at in the full TIA, and the number, this is just sticking in my head, was 115 feet from the stop bar. Oh, and maybe that's why this is drawn here at 115 feet.
Right.
So that would suggest the driveway edge shouldn't be closer than this.
And
it's
Sean,
65 feet. Oh, sorry,
one
Karen.
point is that I think you had said staff hadn't had a time to review this yet. So is that correct in that you said that city staff didn't review these plans yet?
Yeah, and I wasn't really even expecting the full staff to be able to review them, but I didn't have time to share them with planning staff. I just kind of glanced at them and put them on the agenda because they came in and they went out.
So my concern is that staff hasn't had time to review this. I'm not sure how much we as a committee should discuss, but I wanted to throw that out there. It's like, should we wait till city staff has had time to review? Or
I don't know that planning staff is going to get into driveway siting issues, though. I mean, I looked at it and I can tell you that, just looking at it from a policy perspective, which is how the city asks me to look at it, I wouldn't support this, but that doesn't mean the city wouldn't. And I want to be clear about that too.
You keep calling this access management plan a policy. I mean, I look at it, there's nothing in there that defines it as a policy. It's basically an access management plan is adopted by the city council in November of 2000. I mean, that seems like more of a policy than a policy to me. It sounds like a very definite thing.
Well, and I think the city
I don't know where
council,
the definition of policy comes from, Scott. That's my question.
I'm open to that different interpretation. I just think in broad brush, it's different than an ordinance. It's not something that the council specifically has to override. They've adopted something and given it to staff and said, follow this, which is what we intend to do. But the council can reach a different conclusion on a site-by-site basis for different reasoning. And that's okay with me as a staff, perspective. I just think from what I'm looking at, plan or policy aside, that the desirable clearance from the intersection isn't going to be achieved here. I think there's a lot of other stuff going on. If we're going to look at angle parking, and then we're going to look at a truck dock, and we're going to look at folks backing into a pickup area. I mean, conceivably, somebody would leave this parking lot and drive 60 feet and then back up. And there's, from my perspective, a lot going on.
Yeah, I agree with that, Sean. It does seem like with the parking, I mean, so ideally that driveway would be set back further. But could you put your cursor where the policy says, like there, right?
Right. Okay. And maybe it would work, especially at certain times of day. I could see it working. Part of it is, if it were just a retail site, I think I'd have a whole different set of concern than putting 800 units of apartments behind this. That just adds another level.
Keep in mind the Laura Lane as a major corridor of the development and the direction of most traffic to get to the Beltline, to get in and out. Their way to get out. So the only traffic that most likely would be traveling on this road from the development would be going to downtown Middleton or going into downtown Madison. Most of it will be going Laura and out. And then also keep in mind, these two driveways are existing. Now they're slightly.
Have we opened it up for public comment yet? I just, Don, I just wanted to, before we kind of get off track.
Right.
It's up to the chair.
So Sean, one other question here. Let's say we approve it. We essentially are approving a variance then to our, say policy. If we do not approve it, the developer still has the opportunity to go back to Plan Commission and Council for approval. Is that correct? To override us?
Or at least conceivably they could provide different input to the council. Yeah.
All right.
I agree with you, Sean, though, with the apartment buildings. Like, I'm trying to understand the flow, because we want to make sure we're designing something where people can, just so that it's easy to get in and out. Like, I understand where the first company is coming from, but I just we have to look at it from the bigger, larger picture of the apartment buildings in the back too. So this is a good view. Thank you for showing this.
The question of the developer. Is that okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. What is the benefit of those 4 parking spots to the west of the driveway?
Seth,
Yep.
do you want to answer that?
Those parking stalls, not only city, but also additional for park across the street, but also there's an entrance way to our office and the design studio, which doesn't get as much traffic as very minimal traffic that we deal with currently, people dropping off a check or coming up for an appointment for the landscape design. But majority of the time we're going to the homeowners, but it is an entrance way to the upstairs for customers. The rest would be parking ramp for employees. But so it's the rarity of those customers that would park there.
Okay, because the elevation that's on page 5 doesn't really show an entrance on that side. So I was wondering what, I guess maybe on the stone part of the building. Because it seems to me that you could probably, I mean, they seem sort of superfluous to me, but I'm not a parking person.
And
but it seems to me you could gain, those small.
the ones that are accessed on the street.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because then could the driveway move a little bit further back if those weren't there?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a pretty tight S curve already, as shown.
That was my other thought too.
I mean, I partly also think, drivers may tend to try to straighten that, but then they're going to find themselves into opposing traffic.
Yeah.
How is the semi gonna back into building number 2? Is that what that's shown on the previous drawing you had up, Sharon, John?
I don't remember which is building 2.
Go back.
But
Building 2 is right there.
It's
Okay.
the South Bruce Company Commercial Building.
Is it this pickup area?
No, not this one, the one you just had up before this. It's number 63 of 86. Okay, you see number 2 there? We're number 15 adjacent to number 2.
Oh,
Is that notch? Is that a semi that backs up in there?
right. So that would be the truck dock. This is a number 2 and this is a 1.5, but it's not coming through very well.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. Is that a semi that backs into there?
Let me zoom in a bit.
I can comment on that, Sean.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is a loading dock, and we've just in talking with Seth, they need that just for inventory for their garden district. Vierbecker has done I think you can
Is
kind of
that
see there, a
straight
tire
narrow enough
analysis
for
on how the
or
truck
wide
backs
enough?
into the loading dock. But Seth, I mean, you could talk to how many times you get a truck in the loading dock. It's a necessary part of your business, but I don't think it happens all too often. It's not, a giant warehouse that's getting, 5, 6, 10, 20 deliveries of 18-wheelers a day.
Right, it would be
Yeah, well, how much? I mean, it looks like the same problem that Bagels Forever has got with John Fladd's thing in University, right off of University Avenue, frankly. I don't know, this site is just, I mean, the density of this site is way too, frankly. I think that to come in with a development plan that doesn't meet the standards of the city is, not acceptable. Certainly not acceptable to me.
Carl, just so you can understand a little bit more of, our process when we started putting this together with the city, or so way back when we started working on the general development plan with the city and got the general development plan approved and the SIP for this building approved. The layout of this building and the driveways and the parking lot and the development site as a whole was creating an urban environment where we were keeping a sea of parking off of this site. We were minimizing the parking and we were leaving the driveways where they have been for the Bruce Company for 50 plus years. So just to give you some history on how it was designed and why it was designed like this.
But that doesn't meet the needs of the city because the standards of 50 years ago when this was originally built.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we're proposing this, this 80-foot, if Sean wants to show that the 80 feet away from that Parmenter Street stop bar. Because we can make it work within this site. I don't think it's ideal for the Bruce Company, but it's something that we've had our engineers take a look at and they can make that curve work. At the least, if you guys were to approve a variance that we could have our driveway 80 feet away from the stop bar, we could go back, take another look at this, see if we can make it function even better. I think this is a starting point for us, but we're just really looking for this variance. So, because we obviously we can't make that turn work at 115 feet like the city's access management policy, but as shown, we can make it work at 80. So if we get some direction from you guys, that you're okay with us pursuing this 80-foot distance from the stop bar, we'll go back, rework it and try our best to make it fit the site as best we can.
Well, so that's one issue. And wrapped up.
I, for one, I don't believe that we necessarily have the authority to provide an exception to a standard that the council has approved, frankly.
Well, last meeting, that was the recommendation that there might be a compromise to the alternative, and that's why we went back and actually adjusted this accordingly. Because my other alternative.
Well, I remember the discussion at the last meeting was to get it within the standards. And you maybe have to cut the end of the building off to do that.
You're telling me that we didn't discuss last week of any type of compromise from the 115?
I think the committee was open to discussing that.
Because I was hoping that was what I was going to hear, at least that it wasn't cut and dry, otherwise we wouldn't be here today. Because it was either all or nothing last meeting. It was either this driveway goes away or we figure out some compromise, because that's where we're at right now. Because that was the last proposal of actually, and that's what the recommendation with the study was, to eliminate this driveway. So that's where we came back and said that maybe there can be some compromise in between. And that's where we came up with the compromise of what we could actually accomplish alternatively and still make work. Not best case scenario for us, but at least a compromise. And that's what we were really hopeful about last meeting, that we had at least the opportunity to come back with an alternative proposal of a compromise.
Yeah, now that said, Seth, to be fair, I don't think the committee had a particular leaning one way or the other. I think they were just expressing that they were open to looking at something else.
And I absolutely appreciate that. That's why we came back here today and resubmitted with something of a compromise, because we were all at a standstill of what made sense. The last meeting almost was at a point of not agreeing on the TIA study even. So it's interesting what went from last meeting and discussion to now also we come back with what was asked, and now it's back to what we started. So I just hope that we can be open-minded, and if there's any type of compromise possible, it would be tremendously beneficial for us to be able to accomplish this urban style consistent to what we've been operating out of. And it's not just because it was this way 50 years ago. It was because we've worked through this way. It still is effective today. And it's actually with a highly reduced traffic count as when it was the belt line that came in front of it. So I want to just make sure that we aren't looking at it becoming a compounding problem, because it actually has become better than when it was originally designed and introduced.
Well, I don't want to lose, though, that 800 apartments
Right.
is going to generate a fair amount of traffic on what is right now just a private driveway. This will be a public street with a fair amount of traffic on it, on its own merits, regardless of Parmenter Street.
Right, but it just makes sure you're thinking through where that traffic is going. Okay, and understand where they're going when they come through this driveway alternatively. And what that traffic looks like. They have so many alternatives in the driveway.
And not only to that point, but the Bruce Company's shop is open. Seth, you obviously know the hours, but let's say 9 to 5. The apartment users, they're going to be leaving their apartments at 8 a.m. before the Bruce Company shop's open and people are using this parking lot, and they're going to be coming back to their apartments after the Bruce Company store closes at night. So obviously it all should be looked at big picture, but the timing kind of complements each other on when when apartment users are coming and going, and when store customers are coming and going.
I think that used to be probably, Jake, a little more true than it is now. Where people used to go to the office and eventually they'd come back. We've found that peak travel actually has kind of flattened but lengthened over time. So, the noon peak, the 2 in the afternoon peak, especially with a lot of people working remotely, we're just not seeing what we always thought of as these complementary sort of uses and traffic generations, where people are just on the road sort of all the time, but not as peaky, if that makes sense.
So then it should benefit it even more, right? If there's no peak traffic, less less traffic congestion in this one area, so that should actually help.
Well, I didn't say that.
The point is, it doesn't meet the city standard.
And I apologize, Carrie. I missed something you said. I think.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say the same thing, Sean, in terms of like, it does seem like the peak is flattened out. And so I was just gonna echo what you were saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, and my concerns are the same as yours, Sean. Here is it's just I think with the loading dock there, the angled parking, there's just like 1, 2, 3 things in a row. If the angled parking and the backup thing wasn't there, if the apartment buildings weren't, with 800 people, I think maybe there could be a little bit more lenience on the 115, but I also agree with you, Carl, that we have standards in place for a reason. And unless there's like a really, we've obviously given variances in the past, but it doesn't seem like this one warrants it.
It's pretty.
This is Terrence Wall. Can I ask if we could show you something I just drew up as a possible alternative idea to discuss? I have not run this by Seth, and we don't know if this would work, but it's a thought. Can Jake share his screen?
Let me, I always have some trouble with that, but let me try to.
Yeah, I know, me too.
Just click it to that. Turn it into a free for all. Maybe.
Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to get this to work. You guys see this?
Yep.
So it's kind of messy. I just drew this up and I've not gotten any feedback from Seth on it, so just caution there. What if the driveway was one way in, going in, so there's nothing coming out, and the outbound traffic turned to the west? There was a parallel lane to the pickup window for customers, so they parallel park there. And then that's one way going outbound, much further away from the intersection. The wide driveway that you currently see is going to be reduced because we're going to get rid of the ramp to the underground parking. You're the underground parking. So then you'd have, I think, the problem solved. We would get rid of those 4 parking spaces right on the street there. That'd be grass. I don't know. It's just a thought.
So we would be past the 115 then in your little diagram. You'd get rid of those four spots,
Yes.
provided
Way
that the
past
engineer
115.
could make this work.
Yes.
And then one way in and one way out, and you'd come out farther down past the 115. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Why not make that a 2-way driveway then and not have with the one right next to the street?
I think
Then
so.
Well, the reason is because you only have so much width there, and you're going to have parallel parking for the customer loading, and you're going to have people also just driving by those people who aren't stopping to load, and they're exiting. So there just wouldn't be room in there for another inbound lane, and the traffic would conflict against each other. I think it'd be safer to have the one way where I'm showing it.
It might, yeah, I don't know how the geometry
would. Wanted.
Right, it might.
Sorry.
And so I think, first blush, without much thought or time, it seems safer than the alternative. But that one way in is still a little problematic for anybody who might be following, but at least it resolves a potentially really big problem with somebody just not being able to see a southbound vehicle who's about to turn in.
Yeah,
Okay,
I was wondering the same thing, Sean, though, if there's a way to make it two-way just further down. But
Can the building slide north 5 feet?
yeah. Can you make it an exit only? So there's not the one-way entrance?
Oh, yeah, that's a different idea.
Well, the big thing is the inbound. That's the
That's
huge
what you
thing
really
here for
want
people.
down there is the access
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, because they're coming from the belt line, from the south, and this is the logical entrance. Otherwise, you can't get in the next one because there's no median break, and you got to go up to Culver's, and then you got to go way down the block and turn backwards and come in behind another building. So
I don't know that it's way down.
just especially senior citizens are just not going to figure that out. I'm sorry. But if this was acceptable, we could try to draw this up and see what we could do with the building. There's greenhouse, everything's, stacked up. There's greenhouses, et cetera, on the north end of the building. But if you said as a committee that this would be acceptable, we could try to get it drawn up and then bring it back to you. But I don't know. I haven't heard from Seth yet. It's his decision.
I think there's potential, and I'm open to us working through to solutions, because I can't get comfortable with the point of it just being gone with the TIA and the recommendation alternatively, if we don't come up with an alternative solution. So then realistically, it's going to evolve to either a full campus change out or essentially just staying where we're at.
Instead of sort of a parking area for loading, can people just use hand carts to get stuff to their car?
So just keep in mind what this loading area is. It's very selective. It's on very large items. So it's grills and it's furniture. That's really it. All the rest of the products are maneuvered from store to cart to yard. So if they buy a specialty ordered item, a high priced item that is assembled in a box and we store it in the back. So those are items that we have display only. And so it'd be furniture or it'd be grills. It's really the minimal amount that it is. So it's not that common. It's probably not even daily.
Do they have to drive into the building, or could they park on the loading dock temporarily once a day? Just to the west?
Potentially, if there's access there also.
Seth, does this imply you're getting rid of your warehouse north of Donna Drive?
The Water Silks building?
Yeah.
Yes, this is what we're trying to incorporate together. So it's realistically efficiency of the facility, the mapping, and the challenge to try to redirect customers all the way to the back. So yes, that is correct. We are trying to incorporate and efficiency-wise incorporate it together, so we don't have to take.
I was just asking because the last time I got something big, I went over there. So, but
Appreciate
yeah.
that. I'm assuming it was a grill or furniture, right?
No, it was a Christmas tree.
Okay.
But anyway.
Artificial, right?
Yeah, I think this is a much better idea. Sean, I'm concerned about people doing a right onto this road and then a right away in. Although it's not like they're coming around that corner at 25 miles an hour.
Well, let's hope not.
Yeah, let's hope.
Well, another one thing difference, I'm used to seeing Culver's all the time, and I absolutely understand the congestion and where it's such a reactive of trying to avoid that like the plague. But we always have the opportunity. We have an outlet for our customers. It's not that they're being compounded by a drive-through or not having stalls to find or park into. We always have the ability for them just to go further into the lot. So it's not that they're compounding and just congesting back because of a bottleneck of a drive-through. So
Sure.
ours is let them get into the parking lot, and if they can't find a spot, then they'll exit back out of the parking lot and go somewhere else. There's really not much reason for them just to stop in the intersection.
Okay.
Just, the one-way in there would still be, it would not be per our policy, right? Like it would be less than 115 feet in. So I'm just wondering if it is possible to look at making that two-way and just shifting it further down so that it does meet the standard. Like I wonder if that could be an option.
I think it'd be worth looking
Well,
at.
why don't we go draw it up and consult with the expert engineers and, you know, what based on road stands, you know, driveway stands and all that, and see what they can do.
Sure. That'd be fantastic, Terrence.
So we're not considering at all what they've brought to us right now.
Well, if you could have a
Yeah.
motion just to defer to the next meeting. that'd be
The S
good.
curve thing, Kendra?
Yeah,
I think as it currently was before Terrence's sketch, we weren't as comfortable with it. So I
Right.
think, yeah.
So Terrence, I'd recommend bringing in both options so we can see the differences between the two. The S curve and then this modification that you've made here today.
Okay.
And Sean, I'm speaking for you, but this seems it would give us an opportunity to look both ways at it.
Yeah, and you're allowed to speak for me.
Well, I am chairing the meeting supposedly, although.
That's right.
And Carrie, did you want them to bring back an idea with two-way traffic then coming out to where
Yeah.
Terrence is out is that I want to make sure that we give them appropriate direction as to what the committee prefers.
Sure. Yeah. So I think it'd be great to look at this option, what they have here, but then also what Sean was saying is like, would it be possible just to get rid of that one way because it still isn't in compliance with our policy? And I'm a little, I don't know, it would be good just to have another option to look at in terms of like moving the two-way road further down where the green arrows are going out.
And from all the discussion that we had, if I may volunteer, that it would appear as though the committee would be more open to that. The two-way down to where Terrence is drawing the outlet down here. Is that correct? Getting rid of, our preferred option would be to get rid of, bring something back to show us the one way, but our preferred option is two-way coming out by the loading dock here. Is that correct?
That would be my preference. I don't know what others think.
Sounds
That
I
good.
would like to see that.
that would be more consistent with the plan, correct? That would be the option that would be most consistent with the plan.
Most
It would
consistent
be-
with the plan and
With the
closest.
policy, I think you mean. Kendra,
Right.
right?
The plan. I'm not comfortable calling it a policy.
Okay,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
but it would be beyond that 115 feet then.
Yeah,
Be well beyond, well, depending on, I
Well,
guess.
we'll look
it's
at
two lanes.
options.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll look at options, you know, and focus on staying 115, you know, if we had two accesses, one in and one out. But let us look at some options and come back with them to you.
That's fine. We need a motion then to defer till next month. 2 weeks. I
Yes.
believe.
I will make the motion to defer.
This Kendra, I will second.
Okay. Did you get those, Sean?
Yes.
Motion has been made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, we passed a motion. Yeah, never mind. All right, let's move on to,
So we were up to the concrete repair project. Let me just get things situated here a bit for you again. Okay. So this comes down to creating a bid package, and Tom Weber, who runs that program for us, has preliminarily identified work within our typical 1/8 of the city area. In the meantime, there's been some interest in infill sidewalk, partly along Murphy Drive, sort of south of Costco, out near Eagle, where there's going to be a new bus stop come June. And then a separate infill of sidewalk up along Forsythia Drive near Kiva Sports, which is planning to build sidewalk along their frontage, but it won't be connected to the rest of Forsythia, but for filling in some other sidewalk. Those would be accessible, but we'd still have to front some money from someplace. And we haven't identified a funding source for that yet. But just to get things rolling, Tom was thinking, well, we could bid those as alternate work groups and then work on identifying funding or look at the pricing and see once if the council supports that work at those prices, getting that done too right away. So we don't want to try to bid it just as standalone work right now because we don't have any way to pay for it.
okay. So basically you're looking to a motion to accept staff's recommendations.
Right, to bid this with some alternate work for new sidewalk on Forsythia and then alternate for new sidewalk on Murphy.
Okay. All right.
This is Carrie. I'll go ahead and make that motion that the committee approve the bidding of the 2023 sidewalk work. I guess as proposed by Tom Weber. Does that capture everything?
I think so.
Okay. It's been a motion. Is there a second?
This is Kendra, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I have one question, Sean. Any concepts or ideas on where the money might come from? I mean, can we delay sidewalk repair until we get the reimbursement checks in, or?
I think one of the funding sources might be that if we have some excess capital borrowing from the 2022 projects, the council might want to allocate some of that toward new sidewalk, and then we'll collect it as a receivable later. There's potentially some, fund balance from the operating budget that the council might identify and speak for. I'm not certain of what those balances are. Neither of these are huge ticket items. They just don't fit within our operating budget.
Understand. All right, any further discussion? There has been a motion and a second. Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Testing services agreement.
Yeah, so this is pretty normal. We do this every year. We have annual contracts of undesignated amounts just to have people lined up to do some work as we need them on projects. And the recommendation again is for the same 3 firms that we've been using for years.
Okay, we need a motion for approval, and that would then go to Finance Committee and Common Council.
Ramsey will move to recommend approval to the Finance and Common Council.
This is Carrie. I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Was there a negative in there, or was that just a late aye? I think it was a late aye. We'll go with it.
If there's a nay, let me know. I didn't write one down.
Speak up. All right, streetlight fixture replacement options.
Yeah, Carl got us a bunch of information from somebody that he knows, and I don't want to get that somebody in trouble by broadcasting it on the internet, but they gave us some good ideas, and that was included in the packet. Tom Weber did virtually all the follow-up because my time is just spoken for, unfortunately. But you know, I think the one concern is maybe the fixture that MG&E and Madison have standardized is something on the lower end, certainly in price, and the fear was maybe in quality as well. We don't have a long track record of the folks we got input from. I don't think any of them have a long track record because this is just kind of all new stuff. Folks we did hear from seemed really satisfied with it. They said it's easy to work on. It adapts to house side light cutoff shields really well. It's obviously, when it's standard, it's a little easier to get. I didn't realize until I was walking by that University in Parmenter already has had these things for several years, because I just don't spend enough time looking at light bulbs. But I checked with Tom.
Yeah,
and
and
he said,
there's
"Yep."
more than just one of them.
Yeah, I think we did that whole intersection at the same time. And
And there's more than just that's
What is so it's like, I think the recommendation was this one with the Cobra mount. And was there a picture of that further down?
you know, I'm not positive.
There's a Cobra up higher on page 2. Yeah, 2 of 3.
But that's this one.
Not that one. There was an actual Cobra, the type with the light.
Oh, this.
That
That's
one.
what they used to look like. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the ugliest things in the world for a modern city.
Do you know how many phone calls I've gotten about how ugly our streetlights are?
Probably none, but I mean, yeah.
People tell me if they're
John, go
working or
back
not
to-
working. Yeah, so. Oh, sorry, Carl.
Go back to page 84 of 86.
Okay.
I think the Cobra mount is a close coupled mount versus a arm mount.
Oh,
I'm really sure. I think that's what it is.
I myself wasn't certain, but normally we're just trying to replace these things. So whatever the mount is, that's what we want to match.
Yeah, I mean, most of our fixtures that I drive around the city are arm mounted. I mean, there's a big long arm on them. They're not close coupled like this.
Right. Most of them.
The concern I had with that $265 option was the ability to get it down into a color range that's probably more acceptable. I don't know. But that comfort view fixture will come in three different light sources. You can get a 4,000 Kelvin, you can get a 3,000 Kelvin, and you get a 2,700 Kelvin. The other thing I thought was interesting about that option tree that Tom was talking about is that there's a really wide range of field adjustability in terms of brightness. You can, or for output. It goes all the way from like 2,500 lumens to about 7,000 lumens as a field adjustable number.
Oh boy.
Which is what the data tells me about the fixture. So.
And Carl, which one is that you were saying? This one, the one that says best?
Excuse me?
Which one were you referring to?
the $265 option 3 that Tom presented.
That one there.
It's the one that MG&E is
Okay.
put in as a standard. And I was, I guess the biggest recommendation comes from Wauwatosa, who seem to have these things for quite a while. They've been installing them since 2009. And I mean, the only thing I get is this budget level fixture. I get concerned about the quality of the fixture, but it seems to have been performing pretty darn well. So, I mean, I think I agreed last time we talked about this, is that, I can't see a reason for not doing the $265. In my mind, the Leotech comfort guide that the lighting designer kind of recommended for $848 is a better looking fixture, but as my wife pointed out, they're 30, 40 feet in the air. You really don't even notice them most of the time. I mean, it's different than a parking lot light that somebody like a church is going to mount. They're not that high. They're certainly a lot more visible. I guess I can't see a reason for not doing the $265 one.
Other than its high pressure sodium. That'd be my only drawback.
Wait, what's high pressure
me?
sodium?
The $265 fixture that Carl's
No,
referring.
no,
That one?
this is LED.
Oh, that is LED. It is.
Yep.
Standard for most applications replace 70 watt to 150 watt HPS. What does that mean?
So they put in a 48 watt that replaces like 100 watt. But when they're talking about replacing high pressure sodium, they're talking about the LED application.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm all right with it. That's fine.
It's just they go to MG&E goes to a totally different fixture when they're trying to replace a 250 watt high pressure sodium.
Sure. Okay. That's
And
all
then-
the high levels. So,
And then Sean, I know last time we talked about like if there was decorative lighting and that goes out, this if we come up with a standard, this wouldn't get replaced with it though, right? Can we have some kind of,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like a decorative downtown street lamp. If that's
Right.
like, it would look really odd, right? To all of a sudden have one of these there. So I just wanted to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we have we have a lot of things going on, sort of unfortunately. And it would be nice to bring some of that back together. But the proposal here would be mostly to standardize what used to be the Cobra heads that we're sort of all used to. And then also along Parmenter and Airport and Pleasant View, and they're black instead of silver. But those are the kind that are no longer made. Those are high pressure sodium fixtures, but they stopped making them. And that's the kind of thing Tom had previously pointed out. It's these arrow loops, right? They don't have them anymore. So these we would propose to, well, let's just fit a standard in there. If something else is better, that's fine. But the hard part is getting all that research, right? Frankly, even finding something and then getting all the research together to figure out, is it in our best interest? What was disheartening to me is the way our rates work right now. Even a $500 fixture takes like 20 years to pay it back, because the fixed cost has changed significantly on street lighting. So the variable cost of energy demand is really de-emphasized. And so at $265, that's not installed, that's in a cardboard box, and so I was looking at, well, if it's $500 to put up a different light fixture, how long does that take? And I think at a lower wattage, we have better savings. So it's like 15 or 16 years. At the higher wattage, it's more like 20 years just to break even. So it's a pretty long period, it feels like.
And that's right. So we would have a mixture of like these white with the black.
No, these come in black.
Oh,
and
they
these
do.
come in
Oh.
brown. Yeah.
Okay.
So that we can, I mean, it would still be standard. They would just be a different color.
Of light, right? The
The
light,
fixture housing.
oh, the fixture housing, okay.
Yeah. So we can order these painted different ways. The light is still set at like 3000 Kelvin, like Carl was talking about. So it's a little bit more warm instead of really cool. I think.
They're used
I
to
think
seeing, yes, that'll be good. Won't be that
Yeah,
much.
you know, when we all used to see the metal halide lights and they were so white, and then we got high pressure sodium and they were so yellow, and everyone kind of freaked out, like, what's going on? We're sort of going backwards now.
Yeah.
I guess I'm fine with the comfort view. This cost of $265 if Carl is in his research or the person's research that was helpful, I think, to just because I had the same thing, and Carl, I was like, oh, it seems kind of cheap. Like, why is that? Like, warning flags kind of went off. But if it seems like other cities are using them, they're fine. And again, like my thing is just to make sure that they don't get replaced everywhere. But it's if we can just replace the Cobra headlights, I'm fine with that.
That's our
And we're just
starting
replacing
point.
as needed. We're not replacing to replace, we're replacing as needed. So,
Yeah, we don't have the money to just start replacing stuff.
yeah.
If you drive around the city, you will find a whole bunch of different types of light.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no consistency, none.
No
Yeah.
consistency.
All right, so discussion around the 265. Does anyone have a motion at this point that we move ahead with that?
I'm looking for language to make it.
Well, right now, I think the recommendation is just to, you know, use this style, the Comfort View by Leotech, to replace, well, per standards of MG&E, to replace Cobra heads and the Aero looms that are no longer made. And as we get into other neighborhoods with very specialized lighting, we're just going to have to come up with something else.
It was a long motion, Sean.
Good thing it's on tape.
All right, I will make a motion that the committee adopt as the new city standard, the Leotech Comfort View LED streetlight fixtures to match standards of MG&E and the city of Madison for replacement of Cobra head type fixtures and as a replacement of the discontinued US architectural Aeroloom fixtures.
Wow, you did that well.
I know,
Yeah.
I can read.
I'm proud. All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, and we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Was that it, Sean? Are we done?
That is the end of our agenda, yes.
All right, we need a motion to adjourn.
I will motion that we adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, all
That
in
was
favor?
Carrie.
Yes, that was me.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? No one ever opposes this motion. Meeting is adjourned, and we will see, what is it, exactly 2 weeks, Sean?
Let me think about that. Is it? Huh. Haven't thought about it.
1,
The
2,